Welcome to Felony Miami, where we have real conversations with real people about the criminal justice system in Los Estados Unidos.
Well, it's early in the morning, then when I ride, Lord and Mama. Well, it's early in the morning, then when I ride. Well, it's early in the morning, then when I ride, baby, to have a life, on my right side.
The number one call that most cops are afraid to answer is the one for a domestic dispute. Why? Well, because that's when people are at their most vulnerable, emotional, and unpredictable. Why do relationships seem to make some act so crazy, regardless of race, creed, color, or class? It's something many people go through. And if we had the answer, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But one thing we do know is that violence is not the way to solve any problem. Conflict resolution, negotiation, making deals, and compromise are all about meeting in the middle, finding some kind of common ground and working from there. When should the system get involved in family matters? And when is it the responsibility of the family and the community? It's all about conversation, and that's what we do here. Where there's injustice for one, there's injustice for all. Welcome to Felony Miami. Let's air it out. Hello and welcome back to Felony Miami. I'm your host, Joe Stone, and on today's program, we have three guests. To my right, we have Dr. B, who is also a contributor and producer here at Felony Miami, one of our returning felons. Thank you for being here today. Hip-hop entrepreneur and a cardiologist.
Pleasure to be back.
Got a lot on your plate. I love it. Okay. Straight across from me today, we have Puncho, who is one of the hottest upcoming entertainers in South Florida with a growing social media influence and a catalog of hit parodies, skits, and comedy concepts. He's also a very talented and versatile force to be reckoned with. Puncho can also be found on all social media platforms, and he cares deeply about his community and the people in it. So if you see Puncho on the streets, give him a smile and say hello. He's also the creator of character Lock 'em Up Chuck, which we hope to see and hear more about in the future. Welcome,
You will.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. And to my left, we have Professor Fenton, and she teaches courses in family law, tort, race, and the law, constitutional law, and seminars on critical race, feminism, and women and the law stories. And you're a professor at the University of Miami.
That's right.
The acclaimed.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So, one of the things I want to jump into right away is I know that, Puncho, you're going through some stuff right now personally with family court. And I'd like you to break that down for us because Dr. B brought this to my attention, and it's something that a lot of parents and fathers in particular, I think, are having to deal with. And it's also one of Professor Fenton's specialties. So maybe we can all learn something here today on how to get through this and what it's all about. So what's happening with you?
Well, I'm going to court now with my oldest girl, mom, because I've been going through it with her for 8 years. I didn't want to go to that point, but she had me on child support already. And they put me, they made a salary for me.
They being the courts?
The courts,
Okay.
yeah. The Department of Revenue. They made they said I made, I think like $50,000 or something. And then they made my child support $555. And I didn't have a job or nothing. And I was in the courtroom. And I told them I don't have a job, I don't have nothing. And then she made up all kind of stuff. So I went through that for like 8 years. And then I got tired of it because she wouldn't let me see my kid. The last straw was drawn. She said she'll call the police and say I touched my baby. Because I got her for one day. She wanted to take her back. I'm like, you're not taking her back. Call the police then. And she went to the extreme. I said, you know what? I can't take it no more. I'll see you later. Next time you see me, I'll be in court. And that's what happened. So now I took her to court. We've been going to court for like...
You took your daughter's mother?
My kid's mom, yeah. My child mom.
Okay.
I took her, and we've been going for like 6 months now. But she done she called my lawyer and was like, I'm tired of this. I don't want to go through this no more.
Sure.
I'm like, no, you put these people in our business. Let's go. Like, let's go. This is what you want. Let's do it. But long story short, I went yesterday. They upsetted me again, but I do have time sharing with my kid. I have 37%. So now the
37%.
Yeah.
Who determines these percentages? How does that work, Professor Fenton? Do you know how that works? Who determines 37%?
Well, I do know
I
that
don't know.
in Florida, the standard time sharing is at least 40% for the non-custodial parent. Why they came up with 37%, I'm not sure. It could be a matter of scheduling or some other factors.
Holidays,
I wouldn't know.
weekends.
Yeah, that's all possible. But the standard applicable form in Florida is time sharing of at least 40%, 40-60, which isn't always ideal regardless, because not everybody has the time to do what they need to do or to spend time with their kids.
Sure.
But that's the template. That's the standard starting point. So
So they said, okay, you can have visitation for 37% of the time, and
Right. And after that, it wasn't even that much at first though. So I had to fight for that.
okay.
And we went through the whole process. And then we went to court yesterday. The Department of Revenue didn't even want to grant that. And she wasn't there. She didn't even come. She made up a lot of stuff. She have her own place. She have this, she have that. I was like, she's lying. But they don't want to believe me because I'm a guy. And the thing is, I suggest all guys, if you don't have the right judge, if you have a judge that's woman, like for women, you done. But I had a pro-male judge. And my lawyer even told me, she was like, he's pro-male, he fair. You don't get that too much. And he was like, the Department of Revenue, they was saying some crazy stuff. And he was like, no, he was like, look, this guy is here.
So why is the Department of Revenue involved in this? I'm curious. Can you answer that question for me?
I really can't. I don't know.
And she was being like,
wait, the Department of Revenue is the arbiter of this? Or they?
You mean the Florida Department of Revenue?
Yeah, the Florida Department of Revenue, but they're the ones that are representing your wife. Or are they representing the state? I don't understand why they're involved.
Representing her. She, my kid's mom. She's not my wife.
Right. Okay, sorry.
She wasn't even there though. Like the address she gave them that she said she pays rent. She's telling them all that it's all a game. Who could lie the most? Right?
Yeah.
So she said she have this, she have that, she have this. Go ahead. If you want to speak, go ahead.
Do you know if your child's mother is receiving support from the state?
Yes. She's she's
that's why the Department of Revenue is involved.
But,
okay.
But
Thank you.
But what I learned about it is even my other kids, I'm on child support too, and I didn't know, and I take care of them. I still take care of the one that I even paid for child support.
Mm-hmm.
Like I take care of my kids, but she was giving me problems outside of that, and I'm paying. So that's why I took her to court. But I'm on child support for the other ones. I just found that out by going to court with her. So
you're on court-ordered child support, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
But the other cases, they didn't even bring it up yet, but they're back paying me. So I have a lawyer. My lawyer that I had for this one case, she picked all them cases up, and now we're just getting all of them so I can get my life together, and get I want to get my own home, stuff like that. So now we're on top of it. But if I never went, I would have never knew that, and I would have been years going by and would have been back pay so much. Just like this case, I'm $40,000 back pay for $500, and I didn't
You're currently $40,000.
Yeah, I've been taking it down now, paying it, but paying.
You didn't have. I guess they didn't send the information to a current address, or
no.
And if you don't check on it.
No, she had me on child support since my child was 1. Like, it was a whole thing of she asked me to come sign the birth certificate. We went through that process. She asked me to sign it, but she told me to sign it, and I'm excited because this is my first child.
Sure.
So I run to sign it. All the while, I'm signing it to become on child support.
To become a provider. Which you would have done anyway, it sounds like to me, because you were happy to have a child.
Her intentions was child support.
Okay.
So all this time that I didn't know,
Yeah.
I was getting billed.
So when you sign the birth certificate,
Yes.
you're acknowledging paternity.
Right.
That's what that is.
I wanted to.
And so if someone takes you to court, they don't have to bring you in for a paternity action because you've already acknowledged paternity. So that's how that happened.
Right, but what I didn't understand was $550. Where do you get that from?
How was it calculated?
Yeah, and then I have homeboys that have 3 kids. They're paying $200. Like, it's not even the fact of for my kid, but come on, like, this is ridiculous here. Like, and then y'all billing me, like, they're billing me without saying anything. If I didn't go to court, I wouldn't even know all of this. So
Right, it's like
yeah, I
you're
would
on
have been
double
even
secret
with my other
probation.
kids. I would have been going like later on. They would have been looking to take me to jail, and I'm like, hold on, I take care of my kids, but they're getting Medicaid.
You know
food
what?
stamps.
I want to stop you right there because that's something that I hear and I just don't get it. So they want to take you to jail, you just said.
Right.
Okay, so here they're asking for the father to pay the child support. And if they put you in jail, how are you going to work to pay the child support? What is Professor, I'm looking at you because I don't even know. Like, that
Okay.
makes no sense to me. To anybody, I don't think. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make much sense, I will grant. They don't often take fathers to jail for non-payment to child support. So it's
Okay.
a threat, mostly, what
Okay.
they're doing. They do occasionally take someone to jail for non-payment, but those are the extreme arrears, extreme recidivists, people who don't take care of their kids ever at all. And so
But could it be
Part of
just a
incentive.
mistake also? Like what Poncho's saying that
It
he
could
didn't
be.
even know? Yeah, it could be.
yeah,
Yeah.
it could be.
But you could also tell them too, take me to jail. I do 90 days. How much I owe y'all? I do 60 days.
No,
in
you'll
jail.
still owe it.
You still
No,
owe the
but
money.
no, but it's people that I know that they take some of it off by doing the jail time.
That doesn't make any sense
That
either.
doesn't
That
make
doesn't
any
make sense either.
Like they
Does
take
not
you to
benefit
jail.
you.
Like they take
Doesn't
you to jail
benefit
because
the
I have
child or
someone-
the community.
Yeah,
Child
it don't
support has been
benefit-
ordered. The child still needs to be supported. So someone going to jail does not reduce the amount of money that it takes to raise a child.
Right.
So that also doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. I think child support period don't make no sense.
Well, I mean, I see both sides of it. I see your side of it. I see my side of it. I'm somebody who's paid child support, and you know, when I made the agreements with my ex, we wrote it all down. We agreed to it. We went to court, and it was supposed to not be through the system. And the judge, on his own, decided no, it's going through the system.
Right.
Which at that point, my ex was like pissed. She's like, no, I don't want to have to deal with that system. And friends of mine that work in the criminal justice system were like, no, leave it in the system. Pay it on time. And this way you have an actual record of it. Because the problem is this. There are some people that are deadbeats and don't want to take responsibility for their children or for a lot of things in this
Right.
society, much less their children.
More
you
than
know?
you think.
A lot more than you'd think. So I see both sides of it because you know what? If a woman is alone with the child, that's enough of a burden without having to have money to pay for basic needs. So
Or have
I
someone
get
bad.
it. And there are a lot of deadbeats. And again, Professor Felton is saying that it's a threat, the jail, right?
Mostly. I mean, it's a last resort. There are many other ways that the court has to encourage people to pay child support.
Such as
Well, they could suspend your driver's license. Another something that doesn't necessarily make sense.
I pay
Suspend your driver-
$550 right now a month.
Yeah.
I
'Cause then
just
you
paid
can't get
that
to work.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Or they
So-
could suspend your passport. Depending on the nature of your work, that could also be a real problem for your work.
Sure.
They can attach your income tax returns. So they
Garnish
can
your income
they can-
tax?
No,
Or
they can attach. and,
attach.
so your entire return. So if you're getting a refund from the IRS,
I got you.
that whole thing goes to the state, or a large portion of it.
And then
would
they
go to the
distribute
state.
it to.
Right.
Okay.
Pay themselves back, or they pay for child support with that money. Or yes, they can garnish your wages. So if you are gainfully employed with some employer, they can garnish your wages.
So that's the only person benefit from it is the state. Right? Because that's like kids need medical. They have to go to the doctor. So you're gonna take all people money for that? Like it's ridiculous.
In many instances, I think you're right. That's not the theory that the state uses when they do what they're doing. So if I back up just a little bit, the state, when it chose to put you in the system, their obligation is to protect all of the children that are within the state of Florida. So they've got what
Ironically,
we call
my
the
children-
parens patriae
The who?
responsibility. Parens patriae responsibility. So they're responsible to make sure that kids are supported. Whatever happens between couples, between the parents, it's still their responsibility.
Right.
If you've got welfare that comes into the system, somebody receiving money from the state, then the state feels like they're the first party who gets money back because they're paying for your kid. So if you start paying child support into the system, they think you should be paying them back.
Oh, so they'll front the money, is what you're saying? But then dad is really the one responsible to fill those coffers back up?
Dad or the non-custodial parent. Because
Okay.
these days, there are women who are also deadbeats.
Yeah, because they tried to gun
Oh, okay.
It's
they didn't
not just
try.
men.
They
Right,
garnished
okay.
my bank accounts. But they sent the letter. God was on my side because they sent the letter out saying they closed the took all the money out of an account that I had like 5 years ago. Wasn't no money in there. So they sent that like on a Friday. Saturday morning, I went to clear out my other two. Then when the money was in, I cleared out. Then I got a letter that Monday saying, well, we garnished that. It wasn't nothing in there neither by now. So I'm like, they got going on. And then that when I was just looking at it, it's like, it's just so many fees. And I'm like, man, I take care of my child.
Let me ask you a
Court costs.
question. Do you think that that the system has helped you support your kids or hurt you support
It
your
hurt.
kids?
Yeah, it hurt. Because at first I was mad.
Were you paying child support
Yeah.
before she went and got the system involved? Were you doing payments?
No, I didn't know I was on it.
Well, I think
in
what
general.
Dr. B is saying is, were you sending her money on a regular
I was
basis
sending her
anyway?
a lot of money. I paid for her birthday. I was sending her like lump somethings of money.
Yeah.
And I think she took that to court, like money orders. I was giving her money orders though,
Yeah.
like because I used to be out of town.
Did you keep track of that?
No.
I know because I did. And then when I took it the one time to court, like a few months ago, she was like, "That's okay. That's a gift."
Right.
Thank you.
I mean, anybody that watches Judge Judy knows,
That's a gift.
keep your paperwork.
No, but these judges,
Right?
they'll tell you it's a
Exactly.
gift. And then my lawyer even
it's a
said,
gift.
yeah, my lawyer even said that she was like,
Well,
she said
yeah.
it makes no sense to take that because she'll tell you it's a gift. And that's just
Wow.
what, like, it's bad, man. Like, the mail.
There's a little trickery involved there.
Yeah,
huh?
so that's why my lawyer had my the case. Like I said, it's been 6 months. The first 3 months, it was some lady. She was bad. Now I have the guy. When I went, I had the guy yesterday. He's pro male, and that's why she said she had it. And he was like, he told the Department of Revenue. It was like, well, why are you being so hard? Why can't you get it over with now? Because he's here. You sent her a letter. The letter came back, so obviously she don't live there. So why not? Let's just handle this now. She was like, well, I don't care if she's here or not. I'm here. And I'm like, well, I'm like, what if I wasn't here? She was like, they would have ate you alive.
But yeah, you need to show up.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? She needs to show up. We both human.
Yeah, and my concern
right.
here is how is this affecting the child?
It's expecting her bad. Like, she want to be with me. Like, she cried so bad when her mom was doing all that extra stuff, man. Like, even like now, she know what's going on.
How old is she?
She's 9 now.
Okay.
But she know what's going on. She like,
Sure.
when I went and got her the other day, she was like, she said, Daddy, you don't got to worry about mommy no more because I can come with you now because I heard my grandma talking and they said, you have time sharing with me, so don't worry about it. That's what she said to me. You know what I'm saying? So I look at her and like just hug her. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
don't worry about it.
That's a lot for a 9-year-old
And I was
to
like, when I asked her,
process.
say, you want to go back home? She was like, our time not up. I was like, how you know? She was like, I don't know. Oh,
Yeah.
She was like, I don't know. So, you know,
Yeah.
kids know what's going on. And I have girls. Girls
know what's going
girls,
on.
Yeah. They,
Yes.
So, Professor Fenton, is there any data that shows any positive or negative effects of the system on children, like as compared to children who have parents who have split? They worked out an agreement on their own that doesn't involve the system?
There is some old social science studies that demonstrate that fathers who pay child support are more likely to have a relationship with their kids, and it's always more positive for a child to have a relationship with both parents. The
course,
system is
yeah.
supposed to treat the two things separately. that even if you're a total deadbeat, you should still have access to creating and maintaining a relationship with your kid because the psychological effects are that positive. They are that important. But people, being human, as you mentioned, don't always do that. They tie the two things together. They're not supposed to. They're really not supposed to. And that's one of the problems that I see with the child support system, is that sometimes the anger that comes along with being involved with the system also discourages people from having a relationship with their kids.
And one thing has nothing to do with the other. as we
It
both
shouldn't.
know. Yeah.
It should not.
Yeah. But I see what you're saying. I mean, I can see Poncho's frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, I think frustration that goes without some sort of solution turns into anger. And we all know that that's going to get us nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that's just going to piss off the judge. It's going to piss off the people involved, and it gets us nowhere. So the idea is to be able to have a conversation, which is what we always talk about here, and that's what we're all about.
Right.
So you know, I don't want to have an Oprah moment here, but I'm thinking if your wife, or I'm sorry, not wife, if the mother of this child is reaching out and saying, "I'm tired, let's just work this out." I sense your apprehension because you've been burned.
Right.
But maybe it's time to say, okay, let's see if we can work it out without the system. Because it seems to me that the system creates such an incredible amount of adversity and animosity that it sucks you in, and then you get caught up in all this minutia of the system, and you're not looking at the important thing here, which is your little girl.
But without the system, it's not gonna happen because she got Medicaid. She's on housing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't even know if she's gonna have my other kids' mom. They're on housing, so you have them in your business regardless.
Yeah.
And I even told her this one that I'm going through all this. I told her I would give her $10,000 to take me off. She had me go to the child support place. She never showed up twice.
Oh, you were going to give her
I was gonna pay
another
her
gift?
$10,000, but she was gonna have to do it first, like take me off
Oh,
first.
so she has an option. I didn't realize this. The mother has the option of removing you from child support.
Yeah,
She can make that
They can
decision?
request
Or they could
it.
sign a letter.
The judge may not agree to it. I know this from my own personal experience.
Highly unlikely they'll agree to that.
The judge has to say, well, okay. The courts have to agree to it. Just
The court
because
usually
she
does not
requests
agree
it.
to it.
Yeah, because that's what I was told when I went through this. They said, oh, if she writes a letter to the judge, then the judge can look at it and say, okay, we'll take you. You guys are grown-ups. You're going to handle it yourselves. No problem. One less thing for us. But as the professor points out, it's highly unlikely because
The court has to
They
focus
want
on the
all
child.
their
the
problems.
court is worried about the
their
child.
first priority.
And by the way, it doesn't necessarily mean that the children are living in this state, because my children were not living in this state when that went down. They were living in another state.
But if
They
the
were
court
my-
order is out of this state, then
The
this
court
state
order
is
was
still
in
going
this
to make
state,
orders.
but they lived in another state. But we made the divorce in this state, and we made the agreement in this state, so it stays
That's right.
here in Florida. And I don't think there's any reciprocity, but it turns out that Florida and Texas seem to have very similar systems.
And there is some form of reciprocity.
There
so
is.
if you needed a modification, for example, you could go into court here. It would be transferred to the court in Texas, where presumably the defendant would be, and they could work out the details in Texas
Right.
of what you request.
Right,
So there is
right.
some form of reciprocity.
Yeah, and in my case, it was an agreed amount, and that's that, and when
Yep.
it'll have a termination date, and in your case, there must be as well a termination date in 9 years.
I guess.
Yeah,
Ain't no telling what
Age of
these
majority.
people do now.
18, or
Age
if
of majority.
or if
the kid stays in school till 19, that is high school.
that is high school,
Right. So
and
up until
or
18,
up until graduating
19.
high school,
Correct.
correct? Or there's another thing: if they get married.
I guess.
So now you have to
Or-
force your
or
kid
get
to get married
emancipated.
at 16.
Right. Or emancipated.
Or
That
emancipated.
is correct.
Yeah.
What is it? What is
That
that?
doesn't happen. That's rare
Sometimes it's very rare. Sometimes children have such a difficult time with both of their parents that they go to the courts and they ask to be emancipated. And in other words, they ask to be given their own rights at an early age. The
Right.
one famous case I know was Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
She went as
Or
as a
Macaulay
child.
Culkin.
Oh, did he also
yeah, I
get
remember
emancipated?
that. Did it too, yeah.
Had a very difficult time with both parents. Went to the court and said, "Look, I'm 16 years old. I know how the world works. I got my own money. I got my own
Yep.
place. I want to be emancipated." And the court said, "Yeah, you do got your own place. You got your own money. You're an adult. Not
And that's the key. Have
Yeah.
your own money, have your own place, have to be self-sustaining.
Self-sustaining.
Like an adult would be.
yeah."
Not that automatically that happens when you're 18, but
That's for
they do
sure.
assume it.
Yeah, I mean that seems to be an age now, and then the next benchmark is 21. So
Right.
yeah.
So I have another question. I mean, so males tend to view the system negatively, and you can see why. But I read in a post, looking at some articles, that the system itself has been, over the past 40 years, to stop tilting in favor of women, and basically it's trying to be more equitable in terms of just focusing on the child and making sure that both parents have access to the child, as well as the finances are taken care of. Can you comment on the gender equity or lack thereof of the system?
Well, I can try. There's a lot of history there.
Yeah.
So there were points in history when the system was skewed in favor of men, right? Because
Right.
men owned their wives and their children. And so when there was a custody battle, the man automatically got custody. That changed to a certain point because there were too many infants, like children under 7, that were being given to dad, and he didn't know what to do with them. Way back, right?
Right.
There are plenty of men who know how to take care of children today.
Yeah.
But back then, it was a real problem. Then there was a presumption in favor of mom for a while. Now, during most of this history we're talking, women only really had access to one job, right? So, and still today, when you talk about pay equity, women are making 80 cents on the dollar for men. And most women end up with custody of their children, all of their children. Worldwide, poverty is with single mothers and their kids. And so it is a real issue, and child support becomes really important. It feels unfair because we are saying, men, pay, 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 because for the most part across history, men have had access to jobs, have had access to the money, and have had expectations that women would take care of their kids, but not necessarily wanting to be with them or take care of them. And then you've got the deadbeat problem. So equity is all in how you view it and what your personal circumstances are. So as pay equity comes around and more women are having access to jobs that men have access to, then not only do we have more women who are deadbeats because there are more men who are single parents taking care of their kids, but it's still skewed. By and large, mostly women keep the kids and take care of them, which is no small picnic either. There's money and there's care. Both are necessary for a child. And so I think if you did a poll, you'd find out that most women also think the system is problematic and skewed against them. And so I don't think anybody likes the system, but here in America, we have both the highest rates of marriage and the highest rates of divorce.
Yeah.
And our trending is for isolated individuals who never marry.
And one of the other problems in this country is that I see in other nations and other, we don't seem to think of these children as all of our children.
I agree.
And a lot of these other nations, they see all of their children as all of their children. Whether it's your child, mom, it doesn't matter because
we used to.
they're all American children here. And I think this country would do much better with all of these issues if we did realize that your child, your child, and your child, and my child, they're all of our children because they're all going to be the ones that grow up and pay into Social Security so I can get my check at the end of the month. And they're going to hopefully change these rules and these laws.
Yeah.
So the sooner that we get together and have these conversations with each other, whether we agree or disagree, yeah, the system is kind of crazy. That's one of the reasons we started this program, is to have conversations about how screwy this system is and how to make changes in it. So I'm curious, how do we make changes? Because, as you said, both sides don't like the system, and it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of hoops to jump through. So how do we make changes to this system? Is it legislative? Is it how do we do that?
I think legislation is the last place we want to look for
Last
solutions.
place, okay.
Honestly, one way to look at the law to help people put things in perspective is laws are written in a manner that helps the most people that it can, or the standard, the garden variety. What you see on TV, for example. So Ozzie and Harriet, if you will. So the married couple with 2.4 kids and a dog. Right. White couple with money. When they get a divorce, that's what the law is writing towards. In fact, most laws written towards that idealistic norm, which, by the way, we don't have that norm in this nation, never have. It's around 30, maybe 10% of the population fits that ideal, that aspirational ideal, but it's
Right.
never been something that we have all had,
Right.
or even significant percentages. But that's how the law is written, to help the base of people. And then everybody else is viewed as an exception, as an exemption, as something slightly different. And so the courts do the best that they can with what they have in front of them and with the evidence that they have in front of them. So when I hear about them talking about the money you pay into the system as a gift, my mind goes instantly to, well, that unfortunately is because there was a court order already out saying you owed child support. So anything you didn't give to the system, since the order was already existing, they can call a gift, even if you do something for your kid. I know that's crazy, but that is
I
how
learned
the
it the
system
hard
works.
way.
Yeah, I know you did. I'm sorry to hear
I
that you
had
did.
boxes
Really.
of receipts.
But prior to an order, it is very smart for anyone paying child support to keep records and receipts of any and everything that they pay. And I still think it's really smart for you to keep records and receipts of anything that you pay into child support, because it has to get recognized at some point, even with judges.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, you can't have given somebody $10,000 and they say, well, that was just gifts. Well, yeah, it was gifts, money to buy things. I mean,
Right.
yeah, I mean,
To support your child.
listen, we all agree that the system needs some work, but I don't think that the people in it are completely oblivious. I think, like Professor was saying, there are certain rules and regulations that restrict or set guidelines that maybe are the Ozzie and Harriet, which for our listeners, that's a TV show from the 60s that was like this perfect white family in middle America, That,
Yeah, sorry about
yeah,
that.
No worries.
But I have a question about. You make a
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about. So you talked about it's to I guess not the lowest common denominator, but the broadest base, I guess. Do you think that it adversely affects those who are in poverty, or if you're poor, that the system actually negatively impacts you and can actually perpetuate poverty in a lot of ways?
Yes, on both counts, I think that, because the way the welfare system works, I already mentioned that the state expects to get their money back when you pay child support in. And they don't pay the full amount that you pay to your child, support for your child. They will take some part of that to repay the state. So someone paying child support, say they're ordered to pay $100, maybe your child will see 60,
wow.
75. I'm
So
I'm
there are
making this up.
She
administrative
said she don't
costs,
get all
right?
of it. Like she was like she
That's
don't
right.
even get all of it. Cause I was like, she asked me, I was like, check your card. She was like, oh, they mailed me out a check or something. They ain't give me all of it or something. I was like,
No. And then
you the one put these people in our business.
And for men or people who are paying child support who choose to do so outside the system, they're not given credit for it, as you just discovered.
Wow.
So it almost discourages. So if you have zero money, then, and you're still ordered to pay child support even if you have zero money. So even if it's $20, $25, you're ordered to pay that amount, and it can build up in arrears, which is a mark against your credit, even if you're not thrown in jail.
Yeah, it's on my
So
credit.
It affects your credit.
Yeah, it's on my
Yeah.
credit. I
Oh,
just
my
looked at my
goodness.
credit.
Yeah,
It
but
can mess up your
it
life.
only affects your credit in a negative way. It doesn't affect it in a positive way. Like, hey, you've
Perpetuates
made all your
poverty.
child payment supports on time.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You're 720 now. It's you don't get that.
Yeah, it's
So-
like that ain't even on there, but it's bad. Like in the rears, it's on mine.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think it could affect you if you're trying to,
Yeah. What if you try to get out?
but But if that's the only thing you have on there, I don't think it affects you that bad though. Because I just was looking into that.
So if you try to get a
But it's on
mortgage,
there though.
It is on
then
there.
It's
it'll come
on
up
there.
on a credit check.
Yeah, it's
It's
on
there.
there, but
Oh, really?
I don't think it affects you if you're trying to like buy a house. It don't affect you at all.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. I'm looking into it
Oh,
now
got it,
because
got
I'm
it.
you know I'm trying to get everything situated. But when I look, I'm like, what? I'm like, man, they all over the place. I'm sick of these
Man.
people.
So this whole thing with the child support, just makes me think about the domestic situation in general,
Right.
and how these relationships evolve or devolve, and then when you have violence introduced, domestic violence, and how that all plays out in our court system and with our police.
Yeah,
You know.
there's a famous case going around right now
Yeah,
with the rapper Fabulous.
fabulous. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've heard
was
of it.
charged with domestic violence.
I
After
saw
his
the video.
wife- Oh, you saw the video, yeah. Mm-hmm. Apparently, there's some video out, but apparently the not the wife, but the mother of his children claims that
Right.
he punched her and knocked out 2 of her teeth. And so that's an issue that's going around now, domestic violence. And so
Yeah.
Oh, they have a video of it.
Yeah.
out there.
I don't know if they have a video of
third-party
that
video
particular incident where
of the
he
punching. I didn't see any
I
punching,
don't,
but
there is I guess some
They're fighting.
evidence that he has a bit of a temper, and
they've been together for more than 10 years. So this is a long-standing relationship. So there's been stuff that's happened from what I could gather across the entirety of the relationship. But let me just say, because I think this is a question on lots of people's minds when you talk about domestic violence, there are lots of relationships, unfortunately, where violence is prevalent and people hit each other. I don't condone any form of violence. I don't think those are healthy relationships at all. But
Definitely
lots
not.
of people accept, okay, well, they just hit and they just smack and it's okay.
It gets worse.
Not so much. Well, it's not so much that it may get worse. That is true. But the hallmark of domestic violence is that the abuser seeks to control the other party. And so when you've got a control situation, you have the potential for real danger. I don't know if that's what's happening with Fabulous, but, it's something I would worry about. Because when somebody feels the need to control the other party, if they choose to leave, the other party, the victim, chooses to leave, that's when it's most likely that they will be severely hurt or killed.
yeah,
Right? And there are studies and lots of cases that demonstrate that that's the case. A colleague of mine coined this phrase. She calls it separation violence. So it could be as simple as, I'm divorcing you. Uh-oh. Now you're in serious danger.
yeah,
Or what I tell my students who want to learn about domestic violence is one of the most prevalent incidents that start the violence is when she gets pregnant. I know, counterintuitive, right? Because you
Yeah.
think, okay, that's his kid, right? Her attention is now taken away from him
yeah,
and is on the kid. She's
Yeah.
caring for herself and not paying as much attention to him.
yeah.
And that is too often the very first time when he hits her. And I'm sorry to say he hits her, but it is true that statistically it is more likely that men will hurt women. Men will hurt other men.
Yeah.
There are cases, even celebrity cases, of women who are also abusers. So I don't want to say that it's exclusively men, but it is predominantly men.
Yeah, I mean, let's not. I mean,
Right.
hats off to you for trying to make it fair there, but let's
and realistic.
let's be real.
That's the man.
Numbers are numbers.
I want to take this conversation on a quick tangent. How do you feel about corporal punishment and how it factors into domestic violence, meaning like beating your kids? Is there
Spankings or beating? I mean, God, that's such like you said
spanking
beating your
kid?
kids. I mean,
placing hands on your kids.
yeah, smack on the ass
to control their behavior.
I used to
Because
get good.
Boy,
because
that's
what
a
I've-
belt comes off.
button.
Yeah.
Because what I've
Topic.
heard is that the abuser wants to control the other person, right?
Right.
And parents use that as a tool to control their kids, and so it's not a jump to say, "Hey, if I control my kids with this, I'll control my spouse with this."
Well, the impulse to control is
behavior.
definitely relevant to children because it's far more likely that in an abusive home where one of the spouses is being abused, the children are also being abused. That there is a
You know what?
correlation there.
You know what? I grew
Violence
up. I
does
grew up in
beget
a
violence.
house where there was no abuse between my parents, But when I got out of line, my mom took that belt out and she smacked my ass good. And you know what? I didn't do that again.
For what it's worth, I got spanked too.
Yeah, I mean, now
Me
here's the
too,
thing.
good.
Yeah, but when I had kids, honestly, I started with the timeout business. And you know what? Every now and then, they needed a good smack on the ass just to wake them up. I'm just saying, and it's not like I hit my kids regularly, but every now and then,
You gotta. I think.
I'm just saying, you know,
I think,
if we're going down this hole,
yeah.
just saying.
All right,
Yeah,
we're down, we're way
it
down.
It is a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
I think like
it's-
with my girls, I haven't beaten them in a long time. But I used to tear their butt up. Right, I don't beat them, but now I take their phone.
Right.
I like anything like that, like the laptops, all that. I take all that stuff from
Right.
them. But like I don't really think whoopings even matter too much no more.
No, I'd agree.
Because-
I think there's better ways to. And you know, one of the things that I've had this conversation with people is, a lot of it is about breaking the cycle. You know, and I mean, I don't want to point fingers, but I'm going to tell you, in my daily travels, when I see different sets of parents, black and white, a lot of times I see the black parents being super physical and aggressive with their kids, and it's almost uncomfortable. Like in the grocery line. And, you know, then I see the same cohort with white folk, and there seems to be a different thing. And I'm wondering, like in my own journey with children, I tried to break that cycle. I didn't whip out the belt. I gave them a smack, but I wasn't about to take a belt out and come after my kid.
Right.
And then maybe when they have kids, it'll just be the timeout or the taking the phone away, or maybe there'll be something different. But it seems a lot of this is trying to break the cycle, because it looks like to me in the black community that there is a little bit more aggressive, physical aggressiveness.
We actually
Because that's where we
laugh
growed
at-
up.
Yeah.
And growed up too. But I like, if you told me when I was a kid, you ain't going out the door, that meant a lot to me. You tell a kid you ain't going out the door, nah, all right, okay.
Right, right, because they can sit at home and be entertained.
They don't even go out the door anyway. If I gotta make them, y'all get out.
Yeah,
Like,
we
you
used to
know,
want to be outside.
Yeah, it's
But
not.
what
It's
about
not
what
like
about
that
the
no
data?
more.
So we could talk in anecdotes all we want,
Yeah.
but the question is that actually a good strategy? I mean, well, that's not the question, because the original question was pertaining to domestic
Is it a
violence.
problem?
But does kids who are spanked, are they better off or worse off than kids who are not spanked? And I think there's a lot of data that indicates that kids who are not hit or by their parents actually do a lot better in terms of communication, in terms of behavioral issues, and so on and so forth. But I don't have any children, so I got to qualify that.
I don't think
I
there's
just-
simple answers to the question that
Yeah.
you're asking.
Yeah.
That something that you said earlier, I think, is really relevant, is community norms and how we community understand our children. We don't do that so much anymore. So there used to be more community norms when it came to disciplining your children.
Yeah.
There are places and people where discipline crosses the line
Yeah.
into abuse. And it can be verbal abuse.
Yeah.
And different communities have different issues. So I've been in the same grocery stores where I don't appreciate the physicality of some parents.
It's uncomfortable,
black
right?
and white.
Yeah, black and white, for sure.
I
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
know some kids, and usually it's white kids, who are cursing at their parents.
It's crazy.
So there's no discipline or
Right.
no attention. So both directions are a problem.
That is an extremely astute answer, because that's true. Maybe it is attention.
But
Maybe it's the
problem
desire for attention.
Well, it's discipline, right? So corporal punishment is one form of discipline,
Right.
right? And a lot of people conflate. If you're not beating your kid, you're not disciplining them, which is not the truth. There's other forms of disciplining your kids without
Right.
Of course.
placing hands on your kids. And what happens all too often is a lot of parents who don't hit their kids don't do any form of discipline. They're like, do what you want. The world's your oyster. I
Right.
mean, have fun. And that's
Yeah.
that's the other extreme that you're referring to.
I don't condone violence, but I know when I've had children in my care, if a baby is reaching for a hot stove, I'm going to smack their
You're gonna
hand
smack
or
that
their
hand,
butt
Right.
so that they know, they wake up, I shouldn't touch that hot stove.
Right.
So
Right.
you let them know. But once they're old enough to understand, not touching them.
Right.
But
should be able to
different
use your
parents do
words.
different things as long as it's truly discipline and someone's not pulling out the belt and doing weird stuff like making you strip down and beating the tar out of
Well,
you
I
so
think
there's
that'll
bruises
never
all
make a
over
kid
you,
run
because
away
I've heard
from
it all.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
You know,
yeah.
like, but what's the difference? You know, and this is actual question. But what's the difference between a father hitting his daughter and a husband hitting his wife? I think there's a thin line there, and I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
Well, except that violence between partners or spouses is between adults.
Right.
There should be no form of discipline.
But why
there.
not respect your children as individuals? Like,
I-
you don't hit you.
I don't think it's a matter of respect or disrespect, and I hear what both of you are
disagree.
saying
Yeah.
because yes, either extreme is not healthy in anything. In this world,
If my-
extremes are bad. Something in the middle is healthy, and like saying maybe that smack when they're reaching for the hot stove, and maybe once they're old enough, give me your phone.
Right.
But I do
You
have
don't
to
get to
repeat
use the
So you're
phone.
gonna
that your wife is
discipline-
not a child.
And
No,
you're
you're gonna
exactly.
discipline a grown person.
Yeah.
Like if your wife, husband and a wife, father and a child.
Or I should say, hopefully your wife is not a child.
You're gonna discipline your wife. No, because my wife is no way you're gonna discipline me.
Yeah, well,
I'm grown.
But why
but
would you want to discipline your spouse,
I'm
your partner
grown.
anyway?
You're not gonna
Right.
It's not a person to
punch me and
That's
discipline.
where we
so
used
that
to
argument
be.
is weird.
You're not
We
gonna
need
pull
to
your
move
belt out
away
and
from
beat
those
me.
ideas
the
of
argument.
That's out.
owning your partner. And I think we all do it when we
yeah.
talk about boyfriends and girlfriends. That's my boyfriend. That's my girlfriend. And they better not. And they better not
Soon
this
as you
because
met-
you feel like you own them instead of letting them be a person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole
met today
nother
tomorrow,
show.
you're like,
But we
Alright.
feel like we own our kids. You know, that's my
Yeah.
kid, and
No, you want
and
the best for them.
Even if there's a 15-year-old girl, right, who's in the household and she does something that you disagree with, she doesn't listen to you. If you hit them, you're 15. You can talk to them. They're
Right.
you know older. They understand.
They should be mature enough.
Smacking them, I don't know if that's the best form of trying to.
I would
correct the
agree with
behavior.
that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
But-
think once somebody
I
gets to
agree.
an age that you can use words, and I think putting a partner in the same category as a child for corporal punishment, as this tangent that you went off on,
Sorry.
is no. But
great
here's the beauty of it. It does lead back to what the professor is saying. It's about control.
Control. Yeah.
And as a parent, you do need to have some control over your child.
Yes.
That's your job. As a partner, it's not about control. That's not healthy.
partnership.
It's a partnership. That's why the person's your partner. You know, you're not supposed to have control over that person. And listen, that's just a whole nother show, because that's a matter of healthy relationships,
Yeah.
and we could do days on that, I'm sure. Because it's
Well, on the domestic violence
yeah.
front, I once
Yes.
knew a man who would park in the parking lot of his significant other, female, because she was at work with men. So he had to check her. So he was
That's
always
called
there.
crazy.
Well, you can call it
That's
that too,
called-
but
No,
he was
it
trying to
happens.
control her. He did
Right.
not want her to associate with men.
If I got to
'cause
do all
that's
that,
do that.
I need
his.
somebody else.
Lots of men do that.
That's my woman. Like,
So you're gonna go
That's-
wait at her
no,
job?
I'm not saying that. I
Really
would do that.
distressing.
I'm saying a lot of men view their spouse in that way. That's,
Yeah.
Them the
And
ones
that-
that's gonna kill the
Just to
people.
tie it back to the other
Yes.
point that you had raised about Fabulous, that was the one thing that concerned me in the reporting, is that apparently he first got upset because she didn't tell him she was traveling to the city.
LA, yeah.
And, well, it set off the bells and whistles in my mind, because that means he felt the need to control her. So I am worried about
So
that
where is
relationship.
Fabulous now? Did he get arrested?
He made bail.
Yeah, he went. He went
Made
to jail.
bail.
He didn't spend any time in jail.
How much was his bail? It's a question for our last show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But back to, I guess, domestic violence, because we talked about
Yeah.
family court. Now we're talking about domestic violence court, and there's a lot of common threads there because you're dealing with families and domestic issues. Domestic violence court. Do you feel that system, as constructed, is an effective system that actually has the outcomes that we're looking for, which is to decrease violence against women and keep families intact and mitigate issues?
The law and the legal system can't do it all. That's what I was trying to say
Yeah.
when you were asking about how do we reform the system. We have the society that we have, unfortunately. So the court system has to work on evidence. And so even if they believe you when you come and say them, I'm being beat every day, the tar out of me, if you don't have any means of showing them proving to them, whether it's hospital reports, police reports, or lots of things. And people don't always want to do that. They want to protect their families. Especially, unfortunately, Black in America, you're not calling the police every time something happens because that invites the police into your home or invites someone who you otherwise love. They might be beating you, but there's love there. You don't want to get them in trouble. And so then there might not be a record. And so the courts can only do with what they're given. And so that's not always the way to go. And then the final something I would like to say, since I've got the format for a second, is men are the biggest part of the solution when it comes to domestic violence.
Yeah.
Locker rooms, bars, I don't care what, jokes. Tell someone, hey man, that's not cool that you hit your girlfriend. No, she's really nice. Why did you bruise her up like that? That joke wasn't funny. No, it's not. When's the last time you beat your wife? Because that used to be the joke that was told all the time, right? So, guys, check each other, because I can do it till I'm blue in the face, but if we want society to change, we have to change it.
Perfect
the law
example.
is only limited.
Perfect example. Snapchat. Snapchat did a joke about Rihanna and Chris Brown, right? Okay, listen.
That's terrible.
Now, one of the Kardashian girls, she talked about Snapchat or whatever. It didn't matter. Rihanna, a woman of power though, like she have power. Okay, they put out a emoji or whatever you want to do, a joking thing about her. Would you rather punch Rihanna or slap Chris Brown? Rihanna posted the next day, I don't even deal with you guys. I don't even like your app. I don't like this. I don't like that. And y'all want to make something. She wrote a whole book. It'll take another hour for me to say everything she said. But her point was, if y'all my followers, delete the app. I'll give it 7 hours. They wrote something. They already was down 800 million. The next morning they was down like 1.5 billion. Then you hear the Snapchat people come with their comments. Oh, we're sorry, somebody hacked it and did all this, and it was all about domestic violence. So that's the power that domestic violence is at right now. That she just said one thing. She made one post, and they lost like 1.5, and probably more than that now.
Right.
And Snapchat lost like 1.5 billion in a day.
Yeah. I mean,
For a joke.
The professor is
That's not
right.
funny.
A lot of
For a
this
bad
is
joke.
on the men.
Yeah.
And if you know in your heart that what somebody else is doing or saying is wrong, it's not an easy thing to do the right thing sometimes. It's just not.
Yeah,
I mean,
context,
because we all want to have our acceptance and we all want to be, part of, and we want to be cool and we want to be in with it. And sometimes to stop and say, hey, you know what? That's not cool. But more men need to start doing that. I mean, and you see that this last year with the whole Me Too movement. You see it, tying in with all these things that, look, the bottom line is men and women, we inhabit this earth 50-50. But we're all people, and I said this years ago, there was a time in my life, and this is all cultural, that I honestly did not view women as people too. And I'm saying that out loud, but I had a spiritual awakening, and my partner in my life now, my wife, she's a strong, powerful, smart woman, and she's people too, and men get that, get that through your heads. Women are people too. They are not property, and that
Respect.
That's a big cultural problem in this country.
But men don't get that. They don't see.
I'm
women.
seeing. I look at
I
things
know.
totally different than that. My mom did life for us kids. She for murder and everything, right?
Now,
But,
I want you to qualify that.
my mom started smoking crack or whatever.
Yeah.
But my mom made sure her kids, like she came to my grandma's house. It's a thing the prison had called Angel Tree that they send you gifts on for Christmas.
Yeah.
Everybody didn't. You had to go through a lot to do it, but everybody didn't do it for their kids. My mom did. But
What
when
happened to your mom?
But she went because she cooked for us on my sister's birthday. She cooked for us, and she spent all the little money she had to cook food. And the guy who she was smoking with broke in the house when she left to come get us. And he broke in the house and took all the food. When we got there, it was gone. And my mom didn't play. Like, everybody knows my mom did not play at all. But I was a baby, so I didn't understand when she told my grandma, he's going to die when I catch him. And when I catch him, he's going, and then my grandma and my older sister's 44. So they was old enough, and they just bust out crying. And, I was a baby. I didn't understand. 3 hours later, boom, 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 Little T done killed 8 Ball. They left me. I was too good, but when I got around there, that's what it is. We got back to my grandma's house. My mom was sitting there. I said, I told you. He's not, I'm not play about my kids. She was sitting in a chair with the wiped out knife and was sitting there and said, I told you Ma was going to kill him. He took everything that I had for my kids. All I wanted to do was feed my kids. I took that to this day. I love women. Like, my girls, I give them the world. That's why I work so hard now. Like, without a backbone, without your backbone, what you gonna do? Yeah. That's my first thing I tell them, man. Without your backbone, what you're gonna do? Yeah. Without a strong woman, what are you gonna do? Yeah. It's your choice to pick. You're a woman, though. Yeah. But without them, what you gonna do? So I just feel like ain't no way that I don't even play with people that, like, I don't care, fat, skinny, short, tall. I don't even play with nobody who with me. You're not gonna joke on no woman.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think that men forget quite often is we all came from
a woman. So, and they carry you. They carry you
inside of their bodies. I had a whole thing on
Instagram about that. Yes. They carry you. A women, and that's another thing too. I think women are the strongest people on the planet. Because look, what are we gonna do? If you cut us and we bleed, okay, but try having a baby. Yeah. Try holding the baby for 9 months and then having a baby. Yeah. Like, but we sweat and everything though. Yeah, but try doing that and then dealing with the baby father.
And I think this is a big cultural thing in this country, particularly. A lot of it has to do with ego, both sides of it.
Right. Yeah.
And when I say both sides of it, there's the better than part of the ego and there's the less than part of the ego. And honestly, I think it's the less than part of the ego that causes most people problems. Right. Because you start feeling and comparing and you're like, oh, I'm not as good as them. You feel inferior. And then people go on to turn that into anger. And then that anger manifests itself in some kind of violence but it's cultural in this country because we as men, Ozzie and Harriet, back to, that Ozzie and Harriet reference. Yeah. It's been drummed into us that women are at home cooking and cleaning, and that's just not true anymore.
Yeah.
And other cultures around the world know this, and you know what? Some are thousands of years behind us. You know, you look at the Middle Eastern, the Arabs, and they got women just got the right to drive a car there.
Places.
A lot of places are ahead of us too.
A lot of places are way ahead of us. Listen, America's the greatest country on the planet. There's no question. We just got a lot that we need to straighten out here.
A lot of the things in terms of women not being valued is codified in our history and in the books.
Sure.
I mean, you even look at religion. Women came from our rib. So
that's where it starts.
So it's codified there and it's taught and it's indoctrinated. From day one, and so
it is.
I'm loving what's going on with the whole backlash, if you want to frame it that way. I mean, women are forced to be strong.
Me too.
Yeah, me too. Women are forced to be strong because
I love it. I've always
listen.
A lot of countries around the world that have women leaders, they just do better. I agree with that. I agree that women have Again, women are people too. They have the same fears that we do, that they just have a different way of processing certain things than men have. Mm-hmm. And you don't see mass shootings happening by women.
Not all
right.
It's men that do that.
And another thing, like women, how many times? All right, a woman, a woman could know something you're doing and hold it from you, right? You could know that same thing. You ain't gonna hold it for one day. And
maybe,
if you hold it,
you're not.
No. But if I give you a day, I know you won't for a week. Or if you might be one of a kind. Yeah. But how many men that'll hold it? Yeah. I just feel like women are strong, but it's just me. I just feel like they're strong, they're strong.
So I definitely want to get back to the domestic violence court and its efficacy in actually doing its job. And so I guess my question to you is, if a man does beat his wife, right, and he really did it, is the system equipped to really deal with that? Does it actually help the woman, help the family, or does the way the system's set up actually make things worse? Because at the end of the day, you want to protect the woman from that perpetrator,
Right.
that man, but once they enter the system, what?
It really depends.
Yeah.
So it's another question that's not so easily answered.
Yeah.
So for some situations, being picked up by the police and put through the system is enough to tell that abuser, stop it. This is embarrassing and it's a bad thing for you to do. For others, it ratchets them up.
Yeah.
Makes them more abusive than they were in the beginning, and then she's in more danger. If you mean, does the system help her to leave him? Sometimes, but not generally. It's an evidence-based system that sometimes they'll give her a card and say, here's a shelter. Shelters are sometimes effective, but in my experience, everybody knows where the shelters are. Mm-hmm. So how effective is that at hiding and protecting someone? Our families, back to community again, sometimes are less than helpful because they say to her, you need to go back to your husband, either because of religion or because of their cultural beliefs or a million other reasons, or because they don't have the money to put up her kid and her. And so they send her right back into harm's way.
Yeah.
And so when people, the most prevalent question people ask when you talk about domestic violence is, why doesn't she just leave? Well, because she might not have the means, or, even the people she would otherwise rely on are telling her to go back. And the system's not really helping. Yeah. System's a system of lawyers, not psychiatrists or psychologists or doctors or social workers. And so if those individuals are there to help, sometimes they help. Or if somebody gives you the right card or the right advice at the right moment, then it works. Or if it's enough for him to say, I need to stop this. I can't. I love her. I want to stay with her. Or if it's enough for her to say, gee, I love him, but I've got to go. And I got to find a way to protect myself and maybe my kids too. Then it works.
Again,
but
it comes
that's
to
a
means.
lot of ifs.
Yeah, and it comes to means because you always hear that same line. The first time he hit me, it was his fault. The second time he hit me, it was my fault.
Yep.
But that's not always true. Because no, I mean it is, but there are so many other circumstances that are attached to that. Again, means. If somebody doesn't, and it's not fair because sometimes they just don't have the means to go. And I mean, besides the actual other 100 different physiological and emotional reasons that people hit each other and go back together. There's been tons of studies on that. There's actual animal instinct stuff in there. And so that's why a lot of times when people have these horrible physically negative relationships, they're drawn back to that person because of something beyond their actual cognitive control. It's like some deep nature, primitive brain function stuff that just draws you back to that. Yeah.
In some of the research I've done, what has been most effective is shaming, which is a little odd, but shaming techniques work. So,
shaming techniques date way back.
They sure do.
Yeah.
And we put in the newspaper all the time Johns who get picked up, right?
Yeah.
Why aren't we putting in the newspaper abusers?
Yeah.
So that the world knows this is an abusive person. So you're an abuser.
This guy beat his wife.
There was a Texas judge
so
once upon
some
a
of our
time.
listeners out there, that's a good idea for you guys to mull around. Maybe you want to start a project where you have a nice big billboard there on 95. This guy is an abuser. This guy beat his wife.
The same thing that they did with the jail people, put them in the newspaper, just put them all right there.
That's
in the store, 99 cents.
Yeah.
So public shaming has been shown to be effective at
because
that's
nobody
true.
wants to be called an abuser.
Yeah,
right.
They just want to be in their
That's
community just like everybody else,
right.
which is why, again, gotta say something.
That makes sense, though. That makes a lot of sense what you
So
said. Shame.
But another issue, is time?
No, good. Do your thing.
Yeah, another issue that I want to try to tease out a little bit is the impact of poverty on one's experience with domestic violence court and how having little means affects you. I mean, and both the male and the female.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is not a white or black issue because
Yeah.
this
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not even close.
Yeah.
But the first issue we just talked about, means to leave, means to get into a different situation, or just the fact of violence in the first place often comes from so many of the stresses that are prevalent in poverty.
Yeah.
So don't have a job, don't have a good job, so unemployed, underemployed, frustrated at your job, don't have the means to get to work because you can't get a car, or your car is breaking down all the time. So money creates stress, or lack of money creates a whole lot of stress. The place that you're living in creates a whole lot of stress.
Yeah.
You're living next door to an axe murderer, it turns out. And so that's a little stressful. You don't want your kids there, and so you're always thinking about it. Or worse yet, you're in a neighborhood where there's, not one, but maybe 3 or 4 pedophiles. And so, gee, what am I going to do? Or the food that I have access to is not really that nutritious because all the big grocery stores have the really good food out in the burbs, not in my neighborhood. I've got to go to the bodega, which has 5-day-old fruit. So stress
Yeah.
is one of the biggest factors for domestic violence.
Yeah.
Job stress is relevant too. I used to make my students watch the news to get anecdotes of domestic violence, and you could find something every night. If you watch the news every night, there's something that is about domestic violence. You see a workplace shooting, 9 times out of 10, it's a boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife who shot at somebody, don't always meet their target, but it starts with DV. And so it is a problem that we really do need to address because it's all over the place.
Yeah.
And the costs are out of control. So a woman who's beat goes to the emergency room. Those are costs, usually to the state. She then misses work the next day, absenteeism or late stuff. And so that affects her job and maybe her paycheck. And if she's got kids, that's a little less money for there on the table. And it can
And then the man too.
continues.
I mean, the state's
Yes.
paying to keep him in jail, right?
Yeah, if-
that
yes.
happens. I mean, so
Absolutely.
there's a lot of lost, money and economic.
And it breaks up the community,
Yeah.
the
Right.
family
Yeah.
and the community.
That's when people start talking about universal income and things of that nature.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
I guess they're doing some studies with that in some countries.
You know what I'd really love for this country to do? I mean, now that we've had the attempt at universal health care, and I hope it works in some way someday, I would really love it if we had universal child care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would help a lot if
I agree
everybody
with that 100
believed that their
million
kids were safe
Yeah.
and they could get a job.
I think once this country starts to treat all of the children as all of our children,
Yeah.
Maybe
Right.
we could do
and
that.
not separating us.
I mean, that would alleviate a
That'll
lot.
help. Yeah, yeah. And I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful. I think this next generation of kids, I think they're smart. I think that they're not haters.
Yes.
I think a lot of them are colorblind
Yes.
and
Less
gender
ideological.
blind. Yes, and I think that I am hopeful. I'm hopeful, and I hope that this program can help people have more conversations and give them ideas on ways to affect a change in our community because we all live here together. And before we wrap up, one of the things we like to do here is we like to ask a music question. So today's music question is going to be, what music were you listening to on your way here today? Who was playing in your car or on your phone or on your iPad or whatever it is you consume your music on? Who was playing today?
I listened to Tupac.
Tupac.
Yeah.
All right.
I listened to Tupac.
Classic.
Future and the Young Thug song. It's like a mixed CD, so.
All right.
But I have a lot of mostly like Tupac.
Some
you
old
know.
school
Like,
hip-hop.
I listen to. I don't really listen to a lot of that music now.
All right. So old school hip hop, OG.
Yeah.
And happy birthday.
And happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
Thank y'all.
Yes. All right, Professor, who were you listening to on the way over here today?
I have to admit that I'm a jazz person. I listen to all music, so I do hip hop and rap all
Okay.
the time. But
What jazz were you
when
listening
I'm
to?
listening, my favorite is Cassandra Wilson.
Oh, all
So,
right.
Yeah.
Next level. All right, y'all got some research to
Cassie,
do out
yep.
there. Dr. B, who were you listening to on your way
you
here
gonna
today?
ask me?
Come on, yeah.
I'm bumping FDF stuff.
Yeah?
Bumping that Project Jit, that Lil
All right.
Ted, that Yogi,
All right.
that,
right.
That promote.
that GG.
Promote your own cruise there. I love
yeah.
that.
Well, but
Good
I
stuff.
actually do listen to their music, and what I
Yeah.
love most about their music is that it's authentic.
Yeah.
They really describe their circumstances, where they come from, and you can't fake that.
No.
And knowing them, seeing seeing what they go through, seeing one of my artists get killed,
Yeah.
people get shot, and
Yeah.
them go in and out of jail. Like it really resonates with me.
Yeah.
So it's next level.
Yeah. Yeah, their stories are real. You can't fake that stuff.
Yeah.
That's true.
And you got to answer too.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I had NPR on.
And another thing, y'all follow me on Instagram, Puncho, PUNCHO _Villashio, VILLASHIO.
Oh, there it is.
And I'm on YouTube too.
Don't forget to check out
Yeah.
felonymiami.com.
All right.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. For the Felons and the Felony Miami team, I'm Joe Stone. We'll see you next time.
Well, it's early in the morning. Then when I ride, Lord and Mama. Well, it's early in the morning. Then when